very, very productive days. Barely a second, barely a breath wasted any day in my fight on two fronts, which are really the same fight, the same campaign. Averting ecocide and saving the world from its death by heartlessness. They're the same fight. Two related but distinct fronts. I have virtually no hope of winning or making a significant difference in either. And not a particle of me, not a particle of my loving spirit desires to spend a breath on anything but those two fights. Because that's where the joy is, that's where the life is, that's what humanity does. I'm in an all-out sprint, a joyful, focused, loving sprint, and can't divulge the details of what I'm doing, other than to say, if you click the library tab, and I highly recommend you do so, on my blog, and then click the first link on that one, you may get some idea. The most important parts of my current campaign is the major portions are complete, and yet if I'm given the time, there will be weeks more effort on this front. Little of my time has been on what earlier took much of my time, which is focusing on articles to do with global warming, ecocide. The story's been told, there's nothing new. We've had the equivalent of our Pearl Harbor in terms of the avalanche of news, stories, science that have already been done are on my blog, Tracking Plan B, Google Tracking Plan B, the letter B. Though when the project represented by my library is complete, if I'm still functional, I'll redirect efforts to updating that blog. I'd love to have the time to develop what was its intention, which is to provide a actionable view of where we are, which is straightening the deck chairs on the Titanic. I have no idea whether I'll be able to make a dent in that, whether I'll have the time. It's a massive undertaking. And probably before I can really undertake that, I need to work on a few books, a bibliography of loving, or a syllabus of loving, cataloging with some editorial comments of the 200 or so books, documentaries, movies, that reasonably can supply the DNA have reasonably supplied my DNA and could reasonably supply the DNA of anyone that wants to find the life we were born to, rediscover the life we were born to. In my own daily use of the most important book on earth, Resurrecting Your Unviolent Warrior, one of the tabs at the top of my blog, a number of new entries have been added in my daily regimen and need to be added to that personal trainer. Maybe some update to that book. And as I've mentioned, I have thoughts of creating another type of personal trainer, going back through, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of my blogs and pulling off the sayings, which are the rungs, have been the rungs in my ladder to climbing higher and higher into what's been referred to as heaven. Infinite joy, peace of heart, loving passion, which is where I live. Patterned after 2 books that are now part of my daily routine and should be part of yours. The 2 Tolstoy versions of the same idea, rather what I'm contemplating is patterned after his idea, Wise Thoughts for Every Day and A Calendar of Wisdom. Both of which are available from the library I mentioned, and as I say, I use daily. I'm thinking of patterning a 1 or 2 year version, possibly in chronological order, of the sayings that have been most instrumental to the parts of my development that I've found useful. I have little, if any, hope of impacting anyone alive today, but that's not up to me. What's up to me is to become as much of an antidote, as much of a cure as I possibly can. But to focus whatever time I have left, in the absence of people with sufficient life today to whom I can impart health, I may attempt to devote time, and probably will, if only hours, to imagining the people in the future, the audience in the future. No, I have no illusion that I'll be known. But again, that's not for me to know. My best chance seems not to be to help people today, but it might be to help people in the future. And I'll devote some time to trying to imagine what it is I need to provide for them, the messages I need to put in a bottle in the event that somehow that bottle reaches them. Almost all of my time is here in front of the Canadian Embassy, but occasionally I'll sneak away to Library of Congress. And of course, in the evenings, I scurry away to a food truck that gives a meal to we homeless. Virtually no one stops to talk at this vigil. A few notice, but nothing, it appears to be nothing significant. I may as well be doing this in a graveyard. I'm not being cynical. I think that's the correct analogy. So my work day is pretty uninterrupted. We have rain, 18 hours of rain starting at midnight tonight, I'll be able to manage that all right. The solar power that two kind ladies helped me secure has been monumentally important to keeping me operational and functional here, and is working quite well. Delbert, the fellow from Texas, mid-40s, I'll guess, a really bright Forrest Gump, just as nice as he can be. Loves his conspiracy theories, which drive me nuts, and I don't indulge them much, but he's so pleasant. He's given me a sweatshirt that someone else gave to him, and a couple of other things, and sometimes I get things to give to him. Just a nice fella. We probably interchange for 5 minutes a day, maybe 10, when he stops by, or when we see each other at the food truck. A fellow by the name of Hawk. He has only a couple of teeth left in his mouth, African-American guy. People on the street learn that they can trust no one. So boy, did he keep me at bay for 6 months. Just cold as ice, all sorts of go away signs. He's been on this sidewalk for years, I'm told. Probably about my age. Well, I'm not social because I have a war I'm fighting. He's not social because he's learned to trust no one and likes his solitude. But we quite like each other, and at 2 different times independently. Once the dump truck came to pick up my stuff, and he stood up for it, and another time, thank goodness, he was gone, and I saw them going after his stuff, and I was able to protect it. It wasn't a quid quo pro, but we both enjoyed realizing that we have a very positive regard for one another, and that's quite pleasant. We have no dialogue, although when I see inclement weather coming on the internet, I'll tell him of it. He has learned to trust that and realize it for the show of love and brotherhood that I feel for him, and that's quite nice. And if I spiritually have been on black diamond slopes, I'm moving toward the ability to handle double black diamond slopes, dealing with my pending mortality and notions of thoughts of people to whom much of my life has been devoted, and how that may play out as my health fails. Realizing that realizing to a degree, we'll find out how much, that what I owe them is to stay focused on these 2 battles, and no more than a soldier would leave the battlefield a soldier would stay on the battlefield because he loved their dearest, even if they felt that they had some personal need for her or him. I am, to a degree, struggling through that in my mind successfully, and realizing that what I owe those to whom I've been the closest is to not indulge in the self-serving nonsense that we consider normal and appropriate in this society, and stay focused on all that matters, relatively speaking, all that matters, which is averting ecocide with every breath we have, and moving from the death grip that our fleshly spirit has on us that we consider virtue in this society to the life-giving of turning our lives over to our loving spirit, which, yes, would destroy the fleshly overprivilege that we are so addicted to, and thereby return to us our life, our reason for being, our passion, our joy, our peace of heart. Whether I'll have the strength when I'm really tested to stand that ground out of love, whether I'll succumb to my fleshly spirit, my desire for codependency and enabling, I may be becoming loving enough. I'm certainly struggling through it. Most of the time it's not a struggle. My dream life has been somewhat disturbed in recent days, and that has turned out to be a really good thing, because that's where some of the fight is happening, and that's where I see some of my potential failings coming to light. It's been quite useful.